morning. You've got the best spot in the house there, laying down in front. Let's stand together. After I just told her she had the most comfortable place in the house, I'm making her get up. Let's breathe together. I invite you to take a nice deep breath in and a big exhale. That sounded really good. Let's do that one more time. Deep inhale. Big exhale. Let's move together. Take the hands, lift them up, take a deep breath in. And when you exhale, shake the hands and go, ah. I want to really hear you this time. Take a deep breath in, make some noise, ah. Because that sounded a little bit better. One more time, deep inhale, ah. Little more noise. Take your hands, pound them on your chest, make a Tarzan noise. Ah. Little louder, deep breath in. Ah. Thank you. Have a seat. I needed that. I don't know about you, but I needed that. Now you can get back into your little comfy beds, be comfortable. The next 20 minutes can be summed up in one sentence by William James, who wrote, "We are like islands in the sea, separate on the surface, connected in the deep." So what I hope to give you in the next, now 19 minutes left to go, are two metaphors for which to hold this journey of leadership towards our own well-being, our flourishing. What does that look like? If I were to hold a metaphor in my mind's eye and in my heart about what that looks like day in and day out. And I bet the first metaphor is actually not going to be surprising to you. The first metaphor is of an individual path towards flourishing. I've made it. This sense of a path, an individual path, a process moving forward. A sense that I have agency over this life. A sense of what I call selfing in the best possible way. How wonderful it is, this metaphor of self. When we feel the empowerment that comes from understanding, I can cultivate hope in my life. I can engage my character strengths. I can look for positive emotions. I'm not speaking anything new to this audience, right? You're all familiar with these tools? I mean, this is amazing. How many of you have benefited by implementing these tools in your everyday life? How many of you look forward to implementing more? This is self-leadership. This is the agency, the motivation, the openness of saying, oh, wow, I can build a life that is uniquely mine. I can do this selfing. So this is good, this is necessary, this is great. Except when it's not. What do I mean by that? Because that's the whole crux of what we're learning, right? That this selfing thing is good. There are times in life when the idea of selfing in and of itself feels like too much. There are times in life where the weight of the world feels like we can't even breathe, much less elevate hope or dancing or openness. One day I got a phone call that my husband's younger brother didn't wake up from sleep. He had died during the night. Not long after that, I get a call that my beloved nephew had died of a drug overdose. Not long after that, I got a call that a beloved family member was in the emergency room. He had tried to hurt himself because of the pain of his mental health that he was feeling and his addiction. I was not selfing. It was all I could do to endure this sometimes terrifying truth of what it means to be human. The angst and heaviness and weight that sometimes arises. My goodness, yesterday when I was listening to that speaker about Ukraine, I teach this stuff, and I felt really hard to self, to use those tools. So this is for those of you who are having difficulty selving or applying some of these tools because the weight of the world is really on your shoulders. And you feel like you want to be like Atlas Shrugs. You want some space from that selfing work, that self-leadership. I'm not alone, right? I mean, even just this morning when I picked up my email, it was from a good friend who I hadn't heard from in a long time, told me that her mother had died, her father-in-law had passed away, her marriage broke up. And just one thing, oh, and by the way, the last 13 weeks I've been struggling with shingles. Okay then. Selfing is great until it's not. And so I'm speaking to those of you who want an alternative mental model. And by the way, this selfing is something that I don't want to miss the importance, like this is not the right metaphor to hold. It absolutely is a great and grounded metaphor. I mean, we teach this in this positive psychology course. The certificate in positive psychology is all about understanding the selves that live within us. The ought self that tells us what we should be doing, the authentic self that shows up right here, right now, the best self moments we can pull from the past because we used our strengths and our best self showed up. I hope those of you who have taken the positive psychology are remembering the balloon metaphor. Yes, good. The possible selves that we can head towards, and then the ideal self by which we choose to take action towards each and every day. Incredibly powerful, incredibly useful until it's not. And so what I want to offer today is not only do we have this skill in our back pocket and this mental model for going forward, to craft, to shape, to deliberately mold our life in a deliberate way, but also to offer another metaphor for when life feels too heavy and even selfing itself feels too hard. Do you know what I'm talking about? Can you, yeah. Oh, those of you said yes, say it again because it makes you feel, you know what I'm talking about? Yes, yeah. Sometimes, as Mo was saying, the doing is too much, even when the doing is just what character strengths can I engage today? So I want to offer you the water, the metaphor of water. This comes actually in a lot of ancient wisdom traditions of talking about the fact that we see ourselves as islands, as droplets of water, as individual beings, and we forget our true nature of being deeply connected to something bigger. So in Buddhism and meditation, when thoughts arise, those are like waves on the ocean. When feelings emerge, those are like waves on the ocean. That there is a way of non-doing that allows us to drop away from the individual aspect of self so that we become deeply connected with something bigger. And because I was finding selfing difficult, I started to think a lot about its opposite of unselfing. Can this mini me in my mind, the big feelings that I'm experiencing, can I unself from them? What would that look like? To build a capacity to unself, not just self. If self-leadership was this active, directive shaping, then unselfing is this receptive open, engaged in a quiet, bigger way. You could speak about the yin and the yang, the active and the passive, the receptive. Noel mentioned the words masculine and feminine. You could think about them in those terms. This shared leadership is not me creating a stronger container of self by relationships. It's me actually letting go of the identity of self in relationship to what I trust and can relax into. I want to offer 2 specific ways that we can do this. Because number one, we know of ways of doing this that is unhealthy. What are some unhealthy ways we try in unself? Netflix, alcohol, binge watching, our favorite. What on Netflix in particular, just so we know what we're unselfing around? Alcoholism, drug addiction. This is the self saying, this is too much. I cannot live with myself anymore with this pain. We can learn in positive psychology, positive selfing techniques. Csikszentmihalyi's state of flow. You lose a sense of self when you're deeply engaged in activity that you love. The doer and the doing is not separate. The doing, the doer, the doing, and the done is a connected whole. Time expands. So this we know positively, when you know negatively when it comes to unselving. I want to offer 2 ways in which to think about unselving as a part of a way of being versus doing. And it really lies in a similar thread of connection. It is through that interconnection of a greater whole with 1, relationships, and 2, spiritual connection. Yeah, I'm going to use the S word. And I'm going to use the S word, spiritual dimension, not in terms of meaning and purpose like we use inspire, but directly towards, you could call it divine, you could call it God, you could call it spiritual, you could call it consciousness, you could call it energy. But one of the things that we try and do when we're shaping ourselves is it is really just too small to contain the enormity of humanness. It's too small. We all find that at some point, and we need to get a bigger container. So what is that bigger container for you? So the connection piece I'm going to address today is twofold. 1, thinking about this unselfing as a part of a relational field, and this unselfing as part of spiritual connection. Yes? So the first one, oops, I don't want to show that just yet. Here's what I want you to do. Close your eyes and think about, let's just first take a deep breath in. Big exhale. What I'd love you to do is think about the time where you were challenged in life, where the burdens of life felt really heavy and selfing seemed out of your reach. And someone helped you. Maybe they gave you a shoulder to lean on, they opened their heart, they opened their doors for you. Maybe they laughed with you, or cried with you, or just stayed quiet with you, or were just simply a presence in your life. Now think about someone in your life that was going through a difficult time where you were that space for them. That you became the bigger container because their self was not able to hold the enormity of what they were going through. And you became for them the shoulder that they leaned on, the heart that opened. And noticing what that field of relationship was like. Deep breath in, big exhale. And mentally thanking that person and yourself for being a bigger container. Opening your eyes, coming back into the room. This was an example of getting outside of trying to solve the issue of self within your own mind and dropping down and out to others as a bigger container. Now, I mentioned that this wasn't like our Inspire, where we're engaging relationship to build the self, because then we're using it just as another way of building the self. You understand what I'm saying? Like we're actually being in relationship in a way that we can drop away what no longer serves us. And so this, I think, poetry, art, music hits what I'm trying to say much better than my words could. This is a poem that I found by Alberto Rios, When Giving Is All We Had. And he writes, "You gave me blue and I gave you yellow. Together we are simply green. You gave me what you did not have and I gave you what you had to give. Together we made something greater from the difference." This is the relational shared leadership of dropping down and back. We don't have to have all the answers. And in fact, DEI initiatives, diversity, equity, inclusion, this is the reason they work, is because when you have people in the room different from you, and you trust and hold a container, a new color is created. This is what happens in biology. When two ecosystems meet, where the ocean meets the beach, a whole new ecosystem is built. What exists in that tidal zone exists no place else but where those two ecosystems meet. When life feels like too much to self, where can you rest in a relationship that allows new things to be birthed? For me, during the pandemic, that new relationship was with Dr. Barbara Vakar, who was the previous CEO of Kapalo. I used to work with her when I was the general manager of Rise out there. That relationship was so nurturing and restful for me, where I could let go of the world. She is the reason why the certificate in positive psychology is now being held at Ubiquity University. She's the reason why now I'm also the global director of growth for the Women Presidents Organization. She's also the reason why we're now looking at building a master's that relates not only to building a positive self, but in service to others with a spiritual component. I did not expect any of that. That came from opening in relationship in a new way. So what new color has arisen? What new ecosystem, when you thought about that relationship where you could kind of drop away the sense of self, what new color has come into your life because of it? The last bit of unselfing is this idea of spiritual connection. Every tradition talks about surrendering and opening to power greater than oneself. Part of the question I would ask you is, what is that for you? When you really have no more capacity to self because the weight of the world feels too heavy, what can you trust? What do you believe? What can you open to? It could be nature. It could be the sky above. It could be the breath. It could be God. It could be the divine. And not the divine, it could be your religion. It could be prayer. What can you give yourself over to because you trust it? For me, it is my personal relationship with the divine, combined with my non-dual meditation. And part of me doesn't even want to say what I do, because then all of a sudden the selfing mind goes, oh, what's that technique? Let's go ahead and try that one. Whereas the question really to ask oneself is, where do I actually hand over the reins? In what ways do I actually let go? Where in my life do I trust something larger than myself? So my invitation on these two models or metaphors to hold in your head, self, do this selfing. It is an amazing thing to feel the energy that comes from making decisions in your life that support your well-being. And when that one doesn't serve you, yeah, it's okay to stop apologizing that you're having a bad day. Stop apologizing that it feels too much. And recognize, this is time to drop back and to surrender into something else that I hold near and dear. Something bigger than myself. Should we stand one more time? I just want you to notice when I said earlier, stand together, that we're always standing together. Take a deep breath in. Big exhale. My dear friends, we are always breathing together, even when we feel alone and separate and other or less than, or not enough. Let's move together. Take a deep inhale. Big exhale. We're always moving together. We're never moving separately, like everything. Does that make you happy? It makes me very happy to look at you and realize that we're not separate selves. We are connected at the deep. One more deep breath in. Big exhale. I hold you in my heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you.